Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video on Role Corruption with me, Hydra. Today we are completing this channel's objective by talking about a different tabletop roleplay game set in one of the Games Workshop universes. Today in particular, we are going to be going through Wrath and Glory, which is being re-released next week. That's right, we'll cut straight to it. First announcement out of the way, Wrath and Glory is being re-released next week. Some 20 minutes after I said on the Discord that soon probably meant 6 months, they thought, I know what, we'll make this guy look really stupid and announce that it's actually being released next week. I'm hopeful for early week, but we know it's not going to be Monday, that's all we know. Now, Wrath and Glory, if you're already turning your nose up, yes, it was met with a somewhat fuzzy reception, for obvious reasons. It's the first of a D6 system in a world, an ocean of D100 systems that have been around for Games Workshop 40k in particular. Now, granted, there were other reasons than that. The core dice system, I have to say, I'm personally a big fan of. I thought it was actually quite good. Combat was simple, combat flowed really nicely, and I sort of place a little bit of an emphasis in my voice when I say that, because I am going to be running a campaign very soon, and I am going to be running this new iteration of Wrath and Glory. Now, despite its shortcomings in many ways, even as the first edition, I was willing to run that over Dark Heresy, and I'll tell you why, and then we'll go into what we're going to do about this new content and what other videos we may have in store for you based on the changes to Wrath and Glory. Well, the reason is basically I need a break from D100 systems. I am just tired of asking for a dice to be rolled and waiting 30 to 40 seconds to figure out what the modifier is before doing so. I can't bring myself to run another Dark Heresy session just because when there is combat it's so slow. When you ask someone to roll some dice, it's always met with a few questions before they roll it, and it just, the pace of it for me becomes too dice orientated rather than just a simple roleplay game to have some fun. So for me it's a change in emphasis. I'm not saying Dark Heresy is bad. Dark Heresy is a very good game in its own way, but for me I need a break from a D100 system. Now, the shortcomings of Wrath and Glory are still a concern, obviously. There are a few, and they have seemingly gone some way to address them. Firstly, I'd say the biggest thing they're doing is coming up with 70 talents. So 70 is a lot more than their previous, which I think was probably more about 20 or 30. And they've stated that a lot of these talents will be based on sort of not just combat, because the previous talents would pretty much all gain an extra dice in this situation, gain an extra dice in that situation, gain an extra 2 dice if you equip this. It was pretty much just have extra dice, and it was dull. To put it frankly, it was dull, and in a low-tiered setting, if you weren't playing like high Space Marine tier, basically it was never worth buying a talent, really. Most of them were just not effective point spending, so if you had min-maxes, there was no reason to get it. But more importantly, it didn't add fluff to your character. As I see it, at least, it didn't really add anything past changing your stat stick. So what I'd really like to see, and they've certainly hinted that this might be what they're doing, but as an example, they've given a guardsman telling incredibly dark-humoured jokes to restore morale. And that makes me think that actually, hey, maybe Cubicle 7 have done a little bit of the Warhammer Fantasy-style talents and thrown them into Wrath and Glory, where now you have a list of talents and you can make a character that feels somewhat unique. You can actually start to portray a bit of a personality via their talents as well, perhaps. It may be things that influence how you make choices within the game. I really like it, and I'm hopeful that these talents are going to make a big difference when it comes to character creation, which we know is largely a similar process. So if you still have your archetype, we know that the prerequisites have gone, so you can be more flexible on the archetypes. Is that a good thing? Maybe. And other than that, it's pretty much similar. They have suggested skills and suggested gear. So basically saying you can do this instead of here's your archetype, here's your stats. So hopefully we'll have to wait and see what the XP tables look like, but it's more than possible that any character could be amazing at anything, and I wonder if that's still the case in this. If the suggested forms some sort of attribute system, I suspect not, that they'll keep this really flexible, because let's face it, a guardsman could be flexible. You could be highly intelligent, you could be comms relay tech wielder, you could be a tank driver, you could be a sergeant, you could be all sorts of things within the Imperial Guard and have all sorts of different emphasis as a character. So perhaps they will just keep it very open, but I'm looking forward to seeing the XP tables, because the previous version basically pushed all of my players. Granted, it's from them sort of min-maxing with XP, but realising that investing to become a jack of all trades was clearly the most efficient thing to do. So, aside from that, a couple of other sort of queries. We know combat's staying largely the same. I'm happy with that. Rule clarification's nice. I didn't really have any beef with the previous combat. It went pretty well. It was pretty smooth. I was pretty happy with it. I liked the simplicity of it. We didn't have to worry about, were you doing full auto, were you doing this? It was basically, I'm attacking, were you doing a multi-attack? Well, that's the player's choice to tell you that. If they're not doing it, they didn't say it, they're not doing it. And are they going to burn a salvo again? That's their choice. So as a GM, you're just saying, well, what are you going to do? And the player might say, I'm going to do a multi-action, I'm going to burn one of my salvos. And that's it. That's done. Roll your dice. Done. No other maths involved. Really nice, really nice. Then it's just counting dice, which on a TTRPG sort of virtual system, we can get a macro to do for us, which I'm looking forward to. Also, I'm hoping with the talents that there'll be a little less emphasis on combat as a resolution for everything. Obviously, Wrath and Glory is set in a way that is kind of purge the heretic. It is, and does seem to be very well suited to combat, at least, with its sort of simple dice system. That being said, I'm kind of hopeful that if used like a VTM system, it could be just as suited to anything else. Granted, you've only really got one stat for fellowship, and you don't have different stats for lying and telling the truth and things like that, so you'll probably still end up with a face character who does literally all the talking, and you'll probably end up with a gun character who is just waiting to shoot stuff. So I'm hoping not, but with a bit of luck, the different talents may open up a little bit more character diversity, so characters can think, okay, we have some obstacles in this campaign, we can move around them with something other than guns. At least for me, that's something I'd like to emphasize, because I'm looking to run something a little bit more like a Dark Heresy style campaign. Grim, dark, gritty, dangerous. Don't sort of raise your head above the parapet unless you're willing to get it blown off type of sort of campaign. So with that being said, more details to come soon on the campaign we're going to run. It's going to be on a very old void station that's going to be basically on outside of the Imperium now, on what is lost Imperial space, and it is therefore going to be isolated from the Imperium, and as such there will be a little bit less dogma and a little bit it's going to be a lost colony basically. They will remember who the Imperium, what the Imperium was, but there will have been various uprisings that have thrown things into a little bit of chaos, just to try and sort of spice things up a little bit. And we're going to go a little bit less overt with the Shema, I'm a chaos worshipper, and a little bit more, are they worshipping chaos? Are they not? I'm not entirely sure. This is what they're into. Try and make things a little bit more interesting. Guys, hope you're having a great day. Happy Sunday to you. Hope you're having a nice roast dinner as much as you can. Love to everyone, and I hope you're staying safe indoors. And we'll be talking soon next week for a review video regarding Wrath and Glory. And I'll keep you up to date with the changes. Take care. Have yourself a great day.